Ayo, artists and musicians.
Who, us?
Yeah, do you want your own vinyl records?
Yeah, but I can't order 1,000 of them. Or wait like a year to get them. Yeah, we're going on tour in 2 months.
Check out our friends lathecuts.com. They'll make you vinyl singles in quantities as small as 50 copies and as quickly as 3 or 4 weeks.
Get out of here.
You heard me right. All their pricing is a la carte, and they can help you pick a package that fits your budget.
Okay, who we talk to about this?
You need to email my buddy Mike. His address is lathecuts@yahoo.com. And if you mention low profile, you'll get a 10% overrun on your order.
So if I order 50 records,
Mike's gonna send you 55.
if I order 75, I guess you would get 82 and a half?
Something like that. Remember, you gotta mention low profile to get that deal, and it won't be around forever.
What was the address again?
That's lathecuts@yahoo.com. Custom-made records in small quantities. Mention low profile to get a 10% overrun on your order.
And emailing now.
Hi, this is Markley, and here's my friend Jeffrey introducing today's show.
Welcome to the Season 2 finale of Low Profile. This is Jeffrey Lewis here in New York City. I make up songs and I make comic books, and I'm a big fan of old records. And at some point in discovering old records from the 60s, I started to hear this name, the Holy Modal Rounders. I was really interested in psychedelic music particularly, but I didn't really know that much about them. They didn't really seem like a psychedelic band. I couldn't really be sure what they were. I just would sometimes see their records, and usually they were more expensive than I could afford, while I was buying cheaper 60s records, for like $3 or $4. But at some point, a record store in my neighborhood was going out of business, and they had a sale, and I bought this record, which is the first Holy Modal Rounders record, self-titled.
Hey, baby, you got the best of me. Hey, baby, you got the best of me. You can do what you do, you can say what you say, but keep on trucking my blues away. I ain't very good in the morning without my good cocaine.
And it really blew me away. I wasn't really sure what to expect from this record. It looked folky, and it is folky, but there's something so slightly other-dimensional about it. The sound, the attitude, it's haunting. And then, after their second album, they got involved with the Fugs, and this record, The Village Fugs, is a record that was in my parents' record collection. This is my own copy of it that I'm holding at the moment.
Sunflower, weary of time, who counteth the steps of the sun, seeking after.
This is just such a phenomenal, groundbreaking, never quite repeated musical document. Although I love all the Fugs records and I love all the Rounders records, but something happened at that time that just so many elements coalesced, and they were so fearless and outrageous that the combination of politics, sex, psychedelia, extreme countercultural outrageousness, it just draws together so many strands and is so exuberant and raw and lo-fi. I think it was all recorded into one microphone with everybody in the room just, going at it simultaneously. And, through the later 60s, the Rounders kind of broke up and then reformed and kept, had an extremely unprofessional approach to being a band, you could say. They weren't the most wise about their career. They were drug lunatics or something like that. Anybody who's ever been in a band knows how much difficulty there is in being in a band, regardless of whether you're also dealing with a bunch of speed freaks and hallucinogens and whatever else. So whatever the legendary stories of how out of their minds the Holy Modal Rounders were at that time, Steve Weber and Peter Stanfill, as the core of the band, even though they kept battling with each other apparently, they did continue to make recordings such as Indian War Whoop and the album The Moray Eels Eat the Holy Modal Rounders, which, sort of start to sound like 60s acid rock records, although kind of not really fitting in with that either.
Suspended the world's ended feet. Our mass will lose in the sea's buoyancy. Come leap off thy lily joy.
And then in the 70s, these other albums that they put out, some of it sounds a bit more like old-timey music. And then in the mid-70s, some of their greatest recordings in various iterations of the band include A Legend in Their Own Time, which is, I think, from 1976 or 75. And we see some of Peter Stanfield's personal collection of bottle caps. He's got thousands and thousands of bottle caps. The album cover of A Legend in Their Own Time, I think, is maybe the first Holy Modal Rounders record where you see some of Peter Stanfield's bottle cap collection on the cover. But his bottle caps reoccur throughout his career. Anyway, he's got Peter, with or without his partner Steve Weber, who passed away not that long ago. They hadn't spoken in many years, apparently, when Steve Weber died. But Steve relocated to the west coast of the United States, and Peter Stanfield stayed here in New York City, and that was part of what made the relationship with the Holy Modal Rounders difficult. They were also at different times, into different drugs, or, Peter was getting sober and becoming a family man, and Steve was still a lunatic, and all of that stuff. To really get the full story of the Holy Modal Rounders, I really recommend the film Bound to Lose, and seek it out, listen to their record, listen to the first album, listen to that first Fugs record, listen to the record Have Moisey, listen to A Legend in Their Own Time, and a lot of Peter's later albums. Duke of the Beatniks is a great record. The Jig Is Up is a great record. He's continued to create fantastic music for decades upon decades, and he's still just full of enthusiasm and, has brought just so much joy and interesting stuff into the lives of many people. So long may he continue, and it's a body of work well worth checking out.
You wanna be a bird?
Whoa.
Hello, Peter.
Hey. Yeah.
Hey, Markley here.
Hang on.
Peter, I just wanted to catch up a little bit. Your former partner in crime, Steve Weber, passed, and I know no one had heard from him in quite a while. But
that's because his psychotic girlfriend isolated him from all his friends. She didn't even tell anyone that he died, but she did take care of him for all those years, during which he refused to speak to me. The last time he actually talked to me was in 2003.
Wow.
So I'm writing a piece on him for Perfect Sound Forever.
Perfect Sound Forever. You've written a number of pieces for them.
Yeah.
Good research work.
Thank you. It's a great site. I mean, I really like smart people writing interesting things about stuff we care about.
Is there a particular anecdote from that piece that you could share with us?
There's a section called Weber's Stinky Feet.
All right.
Once upon a time, in 1964, Weber left his cowboy boots on all summer long, while serially staying up for about 5 days on amphetamine in a row and crashing for 3, which was his normal pattern for several years. Yes, he slept in them too. But one day, after 3 or 4 months, he took them off. Weber, Antonia, and I shared a 4-room railroad flat on Houston Street in the Lower East Side, half a block from the Parkside Lounge, which is still there. We were on one end with the kitchen and the other room between us but when he took them off, Antonia and I started gagging. We went to his room to see what the we saw. We had already smelled. We told him to put his boots on the fire escape and close the window. It was still unbearable. Then we told him to wash his feet in the tub. On he stunk. Finally, we brought him a kind of Comet cleanser and told him to use it, which he did, scrubbing away for several minutes. Even that only worked a little bit. The bad smell lingered until the day after the next. Weber was a most singular human being, but he didn't treat his feet very well.
Well, we will remember Steve Weber thusly.
Oh, he's memorable. I mean, there was absolutely never anyone like him. And absolutely will never be anyone like him again. Like what's that, sui genesis, or sui generis, whatever that phrase is pronounced. One of a kind. I'm basically trying to come to terms with how I really, feel about him, and not whitewash anything. I mean, I think all the awful shit he pulled, as well as the amazing shit, should be not included. I'm trying to show his negative and positive aspects without emphasizing either. Oh, I'm amazed he lasted that long. I mean, shooting up since a teenager, lifelong smoker and drinker, never exercising, bad diet. He couldn't have treated his body worse. I really can't think of anything he could have, except for maybe self-mutilation,
Yeah, it takes a certain kind of crazy.
So given that, hang on.
That's your tea.
That's my tea. And 15 minutes have been passed. And, I gotta extract the tea back. 1 second.
Well, damn, Peter. I think I got about 2.5 or 3 hours of tape from you for an hour show. So I'm good. I think we did it.
Covered pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Always a pleasure talking to you.
You too.
Okay, more from Peter later, but right now we're going to switch gears and talk to Robin Rameli, who played a vital role in the West Coast 1970s version of the Holy Modal Rounders. Before he even joined the band, he wrote the song Euphoria, which was one of the best tracks on their first album and one of the best songs of the 20th century.
Ma's out there, switching in the kitchen, and Dad's in the living room, grousing and a bitching, and I'm out here, kicking the gong for euphoria, euphoria. When your mind starts wheeling and a walking, your inside voices start squealing and a squawking, floating around on a belladonna cloud, singing euphoria, euphoria.
People write the coolest stuff when they're young, if you've noticed,
I've caught on to that, yeah.
Isn't that amazing how that happens? Like the originality that sparks out of people when they're in their 20s, or younger type of thing. I guess it starts out before that, and that is, I knew Steve back in Pennsylvania, in Bucks County, where we both lived at that point, and still, I think, just about still in teenage age. So we played some together out there in the country, and then Steve started going more and more into New York City and playing around. he had the ability to perform a song. I mean, I just sort of played and whatever, but Steve performed. And then he met Peter, and I remember him coming out and was just like totally knocked out, overjoyed. And he would show up singing these off-the-wall, unusual songs that he had learned from Peter. And that was the beginning of the group there, and then pretty soon I heard tell somebody came out and said, a friend came out and said, they're making, Stanfill and Weber are making a record. And the name of their group is Holy Modal Rounders, and they're going to put Euphoria on it, and Steve's saying he wrote it. So I got my tail into New York City, found out where Peter lived, knocked on his door address, and that's where I met Peter. And all that, royalties and all that got set up easily enough, and that was it. And so they ended up playing, and I was pretty much out there, stayed out in the country. We didn't have much truck in cities for quite a number of years until different band members came in. Myself got to be finally included in the Rounders as playing at gigs. And let me see, sometime along, I don't know whether it was Peter or Steve or whatever, but there was a band change, changed drummer and bass player. And Steve and various members had moved up to Boston for a little bit, sort of like focusing and trying to play different, because things were very dried up in New York City as far as gigs. Ended up as being centered up in Boston. Peter's still in New York, so the split between Peter and Steve had taken geographical, evidence there, And so we went to Europe for a few months, ended up having kinds of experiences, automobile wreck and all kinds of stuff. Ended up with Chris Jania for a while, drummer, while Roger recovered, and all kinds of different things. Anyway, come back to you was a choice. Do you want to come back to America and continue playing, or should we disband the band? And I had an option of going off with my girlfriend, Tefia, to go back to Afghanistan and join the hashish trade, but I didn't, and ended up going back to States with everybody. Yeah, we came back from Europe wondering what to do, and at that point, the drummer's wife, Ty, was pregnant, and she said, I want to have my baby around my mom, who lives in Portland, and there'll be plenty of work over there. Why don't you all come to Portland? And so I guess they had bought an old 51 Greyhound diesel bus. They'd fixed it up, taken seats out, put beds in there, and the band trucked across the country to Portland, whereupon there was no work except one place called the White Eagle that was just a great bar, and so we held forth there, and then slowly and surely got to go play other places, and the interest in the band as far as it being a party band and a fun band sort of took off, and we ended up there for a few years being one of the most popular bands around.
Yeah, and it was it was more of a rowdy, like a bar band.
More or less, but we didn't play. There was somebody wrote a article in New York about Steve's, an obituary, and made mention that the Rounders, West Coast Rounders, turned into a rock and roll band. Untrue. Never a rock and roll band. Only played Rounders material, but just had a whole band that loved to jam. So it didn't matter what the hell the tune was. There would be a jam attached. It would be a country tune. It would 5 minutes later, it'd be atonal jazz, and then it would go back at the end to a country tune,
When I come home, all tired out no more,
your belly's there, just like a paw in a storm. Yes, yes, that's how it is. You got that belly. I don't lie.
It was fun, and there was times when there'd be 300 people boogieing out there, in front of us. Yeah. So we ended up out there in Portland, and slowly and surely things got more and more fun, and it was a tragedy in another way because the guys who liked dope, there was too much of it. It was like easiest to so these guys ended up going back and forth between being junkies and alcoholics. Their habits would get too bad, they'd take up booze. Their lives would get ruined, but then they'd go back and forth between dope and alcohol, and things got pretty boring. But they would show up at least on the alcohol, on the heroin. It was more boring, but that show wasn't just about who was doing what. It was about music and having fun playing.
Yeah.
That was so whatever about that angle. But there was times in all those years when the band had really created some really cool music, and then it just got tightened up, and it just ended up as sort of doing a precise version of a song kind of stuff, and that's okay. But I always sort of regretted that the real sound of what we did out in the West Coast never got on a record, because it was pretty interesting, just to go hear people just jamming. The song was only the vehicle for messing around,
Mm-hmm.
And the song wasn't that important. It was just that was put on the middle or in the beginning and at the end, and the band would, generally speaking, go off on, and it got to be too much of a routine. Everybody had to take their solo kind of thing, and well, there are times when perhaps everybody taking solos on things isn't a good idea, kind of thing. But the Rounders were failing, we not changing repertoire.
Mm-hmm.
Steve didn't want to learn new songs and so on like that. And I don't know. I guess I wasn't coming across with all that great material. I was lost in just having a good time, running around with girlfriends and not paying attention to music. And that's where I went wrong, personally speaking, is I didn't do what I have done a few years ago, namely take up music for the love of music again and try to get better at it, because you love it. It was just there as something we did, and I wasn't trying to get better at it. And therefore, you fail if you don't try to get better. You don't, how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up dropping out of the whole picture at one point. Sort of later on, in around 80, ended up just moving away from it, and but there was 10 years of some pretty interesting stuff went on down here.
And when's the last time you saw Weber?
Went the day before he left Portland, and I went over to where he was shacking up, and it was a difficult situation. Poor guy was with a little heater and underneath one army blanket, shivering. I could see him shivering, and what did I do? I gave him $100 to be able to get out of town, and I took some money and walked up to the store and got a GIQ of some sort of green beer. I don't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, nasty stuff. And he was set, and split town and went back to East Coast, and I never saw him again.
Wow.
Steve was quite charismatic. person. It didn't even matter whether he could hear him play or whatever. He was the center on the stage, you know, no matter what was going on. All eyes would always be on Steve, you know. There's just something. He was charismatic, you know. He was an eye catcher, you know.
Yeah, real character.
Real character, you know. And people a lot of people don't understand why the Rounders were successful out here. In less than, they used to play songs real fast, where you just sort of hop on, you do it really fast, and you hop off, and you go hop on something else and do it really fast, and you hop off. Well, I was into music jamming more than I am into whatever, just knocking out songs.
Yeah.
And that was the originality and the thrill of it for the audiences, because you never know it was going to happen.
Well, Robin, I just want to say thank you for sharing with us, with me, and I really look forward to getting this out there to the world, and hopefully somebody will discover it for the first time, or maybe be reminded of it. And thank you for your work. I think you did a good thing in this world.
Well, nice. Oh, good, thank you.
I took a drink, then I fell down in the sink. I took a drink, then I fell down in the sink. The whole world ought to go on a vacation. The whole world ought to go on a vacation.
Yes, that was Robin Rameli. We talked for a long time, and he's a swell guy. Before we move on to this 2018 conversation with Peter Stampfel, I just want to let you know it was the first interview I recorded for this podcast before I had the bugs worked out and before I had Miles and his engineering finesse on my side. So any improvements on the audio fidelity are to his credit. Bless up, Miles. Here we go.
Something I've heard mentioned before but never really heard anything about was the Holy Modal Rounders evolved out of McGrundy's old-timey wool thumpers. Is that accurate?
No.
No? That was just something beforehand?
Yeah, the first band I was in when I got to New York was there was a Brooklyn halfway house for bad Jewish girls who were just out of an institution which was constructed to deal with bad Jewish girls. And it was a halfway house. It was like they stayed there and ate there and slept there, but they could go out they could go outside. And they were having the annual parents get together, which is of course a very, very strange occasion. And some of the girls hired two friends that I have to play at the get together. And I was just starting to play fiddle at the time, and so we decided we should all three of us do it. So all three of us played there, and we needed a name, so we picked McGrundy's old-timey wolf numbers. That was me and Rob Hunter, not the Grateful Dead Rob Hunter, and George Dawson. And
George Dawson was a banjo picker, right?
Yeah, and a fiddler. He died recently.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I haven't seen him since for decades. I know he was on the West Coast, and I just heard about it about a year ago. Anyway, that was the first band basically. That was then.
How long did that last?
Well, just for that one gig, actually. And then we evolved into the strict tempered string band of Lower Delancey Street, which was, the idea was that it was kind of like a floating population, like whoever played with anyone in the band was a band member, basically. It was kind of like yeah, kind of like a, who's in the band? I don't know. You want to play with us, So that was the second group I was part of.
And then you eventually met Steve Weber, one way or another.
Well, one way or another was my girlfriend Antonia had been a girlfriend of his before I met her, and it was her idea was for us to play together, and only she didn't say anything. She just introduced us, and the idea was that we'd think it was our idea, or I'd think it was my idea, because women aren't supposed to be pushy; they're supposed to be sneaky instead. It was a plan to keep Weber off the streets, unquote, and also we both had a lot to learn from each other. That was her basic thinking behind the concept. But she basically engineered the whole thing. Like she kept telling me these stories about this Weber person, which were mostly like scary and awful stories of daring do and wickedness. And so I was expecting this kind of like degenerate, scary guy. And when he came to visit us in May of '63, he was 19 years old and looked like an idealized little Abner. And we took some speed and started playing. I wasn't expecting, like a young white kid that played, in country blues style very decently and sang really nicely. That was like the last thing I was expecting, And the first time we played together, it sounded like we'd been playing together forever. It was like a made in heaven, fit.
I got my hesitating feet, my hesitating shoes. I believe to my soul I got the hesitating blues. Tell me how long do I have to wait? Or can I get you now? Or must I hesitate? I was born in Pennsylvania, I was raised in France. I'm a dirty old man and I wear silk pants. Tell me how long do I have to wait? Or can I get you now? Or must I hesitate?
What was your connection to like kind of the hillbilly culture and country blues and all that as a young man in New York?
Well, there was a hell of a lot of it in New York. I mean, there were bluegrass had been played in New York since the late '50s.
Sure.
And City Rammers formed in '58 to bring pre-bluegrass to the public attention. And then I finally heard the Smith Anthology for the first time in '59 after moving to New York, which of course made everything suddenly clear.
And then a lot of people around there tried to dress up that sound, and you tried to kind of you didn't try to make it fancy. You guys like kept it raw.
Well, people playing what we were playing tended to want to sound like an old record, basically, and felt that it shouldn't be altered. That was and my thinking was, what would these, if you could magically bring these 20s people like Dave Macon and Charlie Poole to the modern year of 1963 and expose them to rock and roll, what would they do then? And that seemed like a much more interesting idea than, let's try to sound like 1927.
So you guys like kept working as a duo for what, about a year? Is that accurate? A year or two?
No, from May '63 to July of '65, because Weber was getting really, really crazy, and missing gigs, and we're playing in Baltimore, and he's, like it's place called the Hot Shop. It's like a Howard Johnson's, like a diner on a weekday full of people getting lunch, and he's giving hashish to the waitress. You know, hey, this is hashish. Gonna give you this hashish. You know, in 1965, you know, at high noon. And also he started missing gigs, and when he missed the third gig in a row. I figured, you know, that's it. Also, like, the other thing was, I really thought that we were going to be this huge phenomenon, you know. I had this feeling that some huge phenomenon was on the horizon.
Like to overthrow the pop world, sort of like.
Well, I thought that we would be like really successful. I thought that we were doing traditional music in a new way that could be as popular as the most popular folk music, which at the time was pretty popular. And what happened, however, there was indeed something big happening on the horizon that was going to blow everything up, and of course it turned out to be the Beatles, and who basically hit America right after Kennedy was shot, approximately.
Didn't you recorded your album
the day before?
The day before, right?
Yeah. And at that point, Weber basically realized that we had some sort of a chance of it. Like when the Beatles hit, all the pop music people were saying, "Oh, we're in trouble. We're in trouble now. There's this hot new thing coming, and we're in trouble now." But the consensus was, but the Rounders are okay. It won't bother them. You know, they can sort of see it's this, you know, part of this new thing that was going on. But
it's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, when it became clear that the Beatles were going to be, when it became clear that we had a pretty serious chance of having some degree of success, Weber basically started sabotaging shit and refusing to work out new songs. And we'd be on stage, and he would, I hate it. I wasn't sick of this old shit. I can't play something new. I hate this old song. And we'd get out, and I mean, like, working on a song was very simple. You simply play it 3 times, and it was good to go, you know.
Sure, yeah.
And after, okay, well, here, I got these new songs, let's work on. And he would like just stomp off. So between that and his, you know, like, increasing craziness, like, there's a period. We started playing with the Pugs in late '64 as well. We were their backup band, you know. We volunteered. Well, we took speed together, of course, at first, and then I quit taking speed in late '63, early '64. And Weber and slowly Antonio continued using it. And by early '65, early mid '65, Weber did this thing where he was basically, he would be up for 5 days and he'd crash for 3. That was the usual pattern. And he went through this period of about 2 weeks in which he, every sentence that he said had nothing to do with the one before or after. It was really pretty amazing. Not the fact that he was rambling, the fact that it was like completely, I mean, he rambled a lot, but the fact that the sentences did not connect ever, nonstop, was like something I'd never heard before in my life.
Yeah.
Before or since. But we still did a couple of gigs during the period, you know, like the gigs like worked okay. But anyway, so I kept playing with him in July '65. Tried to put together another band over the years. Met Sam Shepard, and he was playing drums. And I met him in October of '66. I was playing with this guy Richard Tyler as well, and this guy Dave Levy, and we had a band called the Moray Eels. Moray isn't more amphetamine. We also were approached by Bern Stolman in summer of '67 he wanted to make a Holy Modal Rounder record, and which turned out to be the next thing. Well, Weber won't rehearse. He won't play. You know, it's going to be difficult to make an album with someone who won't work on songs for the album. You know, and I was playing with Sam at the time, so the 3 of us went in the studio and basically without any rehearsal, like knocked out that, you know, sloppy, sometimes interesting album. And the third time was in late '67 when, again, some people offered us a couple $100 job, which again, like I say, is big money. And so that was the third time after breaking up that we played together. And this guy, Barry Friedman, who changed his name eventually to Fraser Mohawk, was there with some electro bands that were playing at the same venue. And he said he always wanted to record the Holy Modal Rounders. Let's record the Holy Model. And I explained that, I explained about Weber. And I had this new band, the Maury Eels. And I said, well, if you want to make an album, it's going to have to be with, like, the Maury Eels as well as Steve Weber.
Come along, pretty baby, we're gonna live in style, live in style. Hey, Lord, Mama, hey, Lord, Pop, swear we're gonna live in style. Won't be no bullfrogs for 100 miles.
And what happened was that we had to go to California, and at the same time, Antonioni offered Sam the gig of writing the script for Zabriskie Point, so he had to be there at the same time. So it was very, like it was one of those, like, obviously the Fates had an idea here that we should get behind, And
sure.
And again, I told the guy, like, look at, you hear this last album, what a piece of shit it is. That's because Weber wouldn't practice. And if you want a decent record, you're going to have to, sit there with a shotgun pointed at Weber and making sure that he, like practices songs before we go into the studio. So we get out there and we're ready to play. Okay, Weber's fine. I talked to him. It'll be great. And so Weber, of course, Weber, wasn't willing to, like, work on anything. So again, we went into the studio cold. Anyway, I was taking fucking to speed as most of the band were, except for Sam. That wasn't taking much of anything, really. Mm-hmm. And after the record was done in a spirit and became like speed-induced friendliness and camaraderie, we decided, hey, we should put the whole band together, like, as we should, and call it the Holy Modal Rounders again. It was supposed to be just a one shot, but after doing it, we decided to, put the whole thing together, and there we had the 5-piece Rounders.
And that lasted for 3 albums?
Well, that lasted until they moved to Oregon in '72. But what happened was that in '75, the Rounders were on hiatus, and Dave Reich, the bass player, came to New York, and he was staying with us, and we decided to put together a band in New York, which turned out to be the Unholy Modal Rounders. I wanted to call it the Renegade Catholics, but like all the bands I've been in, it's basically, one man, one vote. So we put together the Unholy Modal Rounders, and then Dave moved back to Oregon, and eventually Weber basically got kicked out of Oregon, basically. He was married to this very sweet girl named Essie. And Essie worked and cooked and cleaned the house. And Weber's job was to take out the garbage, basically. I wanted to make an album with Weber, and something that people wanted us to do it as well. And so I was going to go out there in '77 to make an album with Weber, and they had a rich benefactor, and a mutual friend of them died, and there was a funeral on the East Coast, and so he brought the Rounders out there, and we were basically did a lot of jam type. I mean, we would take extended breaks in songs, kind of like basically a jam band that mostly did songs, but would there be jams in individual songs as opposed to like long noodle sessions. We tried to do a couple of whole band things, but because Robin Head was writing all these amazing songs at the time, but they didn't he was very dissatisfied with the way they came out. Like basically the band was like killer live. I mean, like at the time, like our live shows were pretty f***ing great. And but the magic in the studio was quite, like much more difficult to capture. I was very disappointed by the fact that, like the amazingness of the, 7-piece rounders playing live never happened. And like I thought, Jesus, if only if I would have been thinking, I would have like lined up like a Niagara tape recorder and like did some live shows, because like that was, I really wanted that to be saved. And here they were suddenly in '76 on the East Coast for Funeral, and I busted my balls trying to line up a recording session and line up a rounder behind it. And thought, this is the chance we can finally record, like that amazing band there. But of course it was in studio, not live, and we only had a week, and it was in the '90s, and there was no air conditioning, and so the result was the last round. You heard that right.
The cold wind from space is blowing in my face. God, what am I doing here? I wish I was a cat, then I'd know where it's at. Sure has been a funny year. The dripping of the faucet puts a rhythm to my night. I walk around in time with it, my footprints would be white. I touch my body's skin, I'm still a human being. God, what am I doing here?
Well, yeah, like I thought it was like extremely unlikely that we'd ever all get a chance to play together again, was my take. And then Weber did come to the East Coast, and we did record Going Nowhere Fast. But the thing about the West Coast Rounders, cutting to the chase, is that they basically didn't work out any new material all the while they were out there. Like I heard maybe like 1 or 2 new songs that they did. But apparently Robin would try and introduce a new song, and then taking their cue from like when I tried to introduce a song, we don't like it. And there was no new material. Then in the late '90s, Weber got kicked out of Oregon because they were about to lose their lease, because the landlord was going to like do something with the space, and in 3 months they're supposed to lose the lease. So, as he said, well, I'm leaving, and you're on your own. So, in the meantime, he'd been in a car accident. He was a passenger, and he got some insurance money, which he used to move back home to his mom's place in Pennsylvania.
Because it's moving day, moving day. Rip the carpet up off the floor, get on your overcoat and out the door, because it's moving day. Pack up your clothes and get away. If you can't pay your rent, gotta live out in a tent, because it's moving day.
I was pretty fed up with Weber by this time. But, he's coming, you should play together, you should do a gig. And so, I thought, well, it would be small-minded to say no. And so we lined up a gig, and it was okay, So we started doing gigs together. After he got out, came to the East Coast, there were a couple of rounder reunions in Oregon. Weber and I'd fly out there for a rounder reunion on, I think, 2 occasions. And there was supposed to be a third reunion in May of '03, which was exactly 40 years to the month from the time we got together. And Weber's girlfriend, who by this time was his manager, right, said that, speaking as his manager, she advised him that going to Oregon to do the anniversary was a bad career move. Her very words.
she was saying that you were withholding some of the Rounders' millions, and your response to that was like there may have been hundreds here or there once in a while, but
yeah, and that was about it. I miss some aspects of the way he was in the on 60s and even 70s, you know. But what finally happened, of course, is that he didn't show up for the for the reunion, and then you heard the Too Much Fun album, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we recorded another album as well. It's supposed to be the follow-up. And there were 2 original songs on it, and Weber and his girlfriend insisted that they be taken off the record because he was going to do a solo album, which, needless to say, never happened ever. Then I said, well, look, just, okay, let's cut those 2 songs out. There's still like 14 songs left. That's enough, But by that time, they were spooked and didn't want to do it. So there's this Lost Rounders album, which is like a really nice album.
Peter, I had a couple other specific things I wanted to ask you about.
Please do.
One of them is, for me personally, the album Indian War Whoop goes to sonic territory that I feel like nobody else has ever gone to before or after. I cannot wrap my head around what those sessions must have been like, but just the sound of it is so disorienting and beautiful and seemingly like kind of off the cuff, but intentional, and maybe like even a little antagonistic, like maybe the joke's on me for even listening to this.
That's all right.
Every time I hear it, it still doesn't make sense to me, but I have a great time. Do you have anything to say about that particular album?
Well, yeah. Burn Stone Water recorded the Rounders, and like I say, I explained that Weber won't rehearse, so it'll be a mess. Oh, sure he will, but he didn't, and went to the studio without Weber rehearsing, and Weber and I took a bunch of speed, and Sam didn't. It was like August of '67, I think. And I stupidly didn't go into the studio, go to the mixing session. Like the idea of no tracks between. No breaks between tracks is like a bad idea and not my idea. And I wish I would have gone to the mixing, but my last take, after a while, it was like, yeah, it's a great record. I never want to hear it again as long as I live.
When's the last time you think you heard it?
Well, actually, I heard it again like a couple of years ago and thought, well, this is actually, not as bad as I thought it was. Like there are a number of really nice parts.
I think Radar Blues is especially nice.
Someday soon, none too soon for me. You will be another memory.
I really appreciate being able to talk to you for this.
Great talking to you. Thank you so much. And
thank you so much, Peter.
Okay, that's the end of Low Profile Season 2. Thanks to Peter and Robin from the Holy Modal Rounders for sharing with us. Rest in poetry, Steve Weber. Shout out to Miles for mastering this episode. And shout out to Jeffrey Lewis for recording that nice introduction. If you'd like to see a longer video version of that intro, go to lowprofilepodcast.com and you can find it there. And if you'd like to hear more of Jeffrey's music, go to the jeffreylewissite.com. You can find his music, including collaborations with Peter Stampful. Season 3 is already in the works and will be coming at you real soon. So if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button to stay in touch. If you want to get behind this show financially, we'd really appreciate your visiting patreon.com/lowprofile. Also helps just to tell a friend or rate and review on iTunes. Leave a review online. And thanks for listening. Catch you later this summer.